I hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah,
Anisha, you're audible. Yeah.
thank you. So, welcome everyone. And we are about to begin the webinar. I hope we are also going YouTube live. And welcome to the webinar organized by RLA. Today, we are here to discuss one of the most pressing issues of the present times, as is known to all of us. The broader topic of today's deliberation is regional and global implications of Taliban rule. And there are various prominent Afghan voices and people who would be commenting upon and articulating the same to the general audience. And now I will request Arnav Srivastav to kindly deliver the welcome note and begin the webinar.
Thank you, ma'am. Greetings, everyone. I'm Arnav Shivastav, and I'm a law student at Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab. In my current role, I'm an intern at Red Latin Analytica. I want to extend my warm welcome to today's speakers, all of whom have extensive experience in public relations and foreign affairs. We are honored and privileged to have each and every one of you here today. Additionally, I would like to extend my warm greetings to dignitaries on and off the dais, as well as instructors and my dear friends. We are here today for a seminar on regional and global implications of Taliban rule Afghan voices. I'm sure we will be enriched by the seminar. We would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone attending this event. RLA is an international affairs observer group based out of New Delhi, India. It focuses on critical issues related to China with a special focus on Sino-India relations, issues of national security, international security, energy, and environment. The main aim of our organization is to draw in India's foremost academic institutions and security intelligentsia, corporate institutions, monetary establishments, and experts in discussions on India's foreign policy and extend the country's role in global issues. To maximize the institutional and scholarly capacity of strategic thinking in India, we are required to integrate expertise in our research in order to foster an even-minded international strategy for India. This is a young organization that is in constant search for fresh ideas and thoughts in the strategic studies discourse. With this goal in mind, we have set ourselves up as an autonomous and a solitary international strategy think tank. We are an intellectual startup functioning with a small number of individuals who are passionate about international affairs. Now, I would like to invite Ma'am Shreya Malik to participate in the discussion. She is an ICSSR doctoral fellow working in social gender history at the Department of Women and Gender Studies, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar University, CWDS, New Delhi. Ma'am will moderate today's webinar. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Arnav. Thank you for such a warm welcome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series of Red Lantern Analytica. I'm hoping that already Arnav has laid down a very good introduction for all of us to begin on. Just to re-emphasize the topic, so we are going to discuss and deliver on the regional and global implications of Taliban rule, Afghan voices. The ongoing crisis in Afghanistan with the takeover of Taliban by setting up of its interim government has raised various concerns at the global level. The departure of USA has been very confusing, chaotic, and has left the state and its people at the shackles of violence and brutality. World and some of the superpowers, allies of Afghanistan, were made as an important spectators of the helplessness of the population. The chaotic months of July and August, with everyday distressed clippings following an international outrage on the same, did bridge some monetary socio-economic crisis. Taliban's regime and its humanitarian crisis has been a long speculation. The quest about the minority there, especially the women, children, disabled, and the LGBTQ, and the implicated stringent methods of violence and surveillance on the women has been an ongoing debate, to which Taliban has claimed on adopting a more progressive standpoint. Today, with a special focus on the Afghan voices, I welcome a very diverse panel to cater to our today's webinar and talk by discussing and deliberating on this standpoint and answering and having a question answer sort of a regime. Uh, the rules of engagement are very simple. We would be taking the questions at the end, and we would expect everybody to please keep their mics and their cameras on mute for an easy and for an easy discussion. You can type your questions in the chat box. That's about it. I would like to extend my welcome to the very first speaker of the session, which is Kabir Hakmal. So just to introduce all of you, he's an ex-spokesperson for the Office of National Security Council, Director of Programs of ONSC. He has been a Director of Publications and spokesperson of Ministry of Education. And also, he's a lecturer of sociology at the Kabul University and an ex-journalist of for BBC. I extend my welcome to Kabir Hakmal sir. Please, if you could unmute your camera and your mic so that we can start the session and listen to your discussion on the same topic.
Thank you.
Very
I
welcome.
hope my video is good because it's dark here. My room is not enough enlightened. I'm here to hear from you and tell whatever I can.
Yes, sir. So, your views on the regional and the global implications of the Taliban rule, um, as an engagement with a media person or anything that you like to talk about, or talk about the humanitarian crisis which has been implicated on Afghanistan because of the Taliban. Anything that you would like to start from, or as a standpoint of a media person, as you were with BBC before. So anything that you would like to take it from here. Thank you.
Again, first of all, let me extend my respect and salam to everyone participating in the group. Studying Taliban, implication of the Taliban's regime and Afghanistan region in the world cannot be discussed in one or two or 3 points. We can discuss the Taliban, at least in this discussion, as a main factor of crisis in Afghanistan. Today, not in we have crisis in Afghanistan not only in humanitarian issues, we have political crisis, we have national crisis, we have economic crisis, and we have a million crises that has been brought by Taliban, supporting by some regional powers, some international powers, namely Pakistan, Iran, and even China, and Russia, and some other countries. Afghanistan is spending the most difficult days of its life. Yes, we don't have fight, we don't have like 400 or 300 dead bodies every day, but we have hundreds, thousands Afghans fled Afghanistan. We have million Afghans living under the poverty line. We have million Afghan girls not going to school and have no right to participate the education and to work. We have no food for millions of Afghans, and there is no trust between the Afghan community and the Taliban. Taliban do not think Afghan community as their own community because their theory, their identity, their support, and their everything is coming from that side of Dural Line, supporting by Pakistan in ISI. And also Afghan community do not accept Taliban. You can see the women's marching on the roads every day. You can see young generation of Afghanistan demonstrating and asking for the right of the Afghan people on social media every day. And you can see the opposite group having meetings with different parties outside the country, how to deal back with the Taliban and how to defeat them and take them back from power. What can I say in a point uh, for coming of the Taliban back to power is that they paved the way for another crisis in another revolution in Afghanistan. When you have a group like Taliban in power, you as a nation must bring another revolution because they are not ready to deal with you on democratic ways. We are every day writing and calling on them and asking them to come and accept a democratic way. They should accept the Loya Jirga, which is a well-known tradition in Afghan political history. They should go to the election and they should allow the free media in the political views and also political groups. Until they do not do this, unfortunately we are sinking to another crisis, which will be a mix up of political resistance and military resistance against the Taliban. Unfortunately, this resistance will be uh, getting watered from regional and international powers who have a long history in destruction of Afghanistan from one way or another way. We have the intelligence agencies that they are ready to support some groups to fight against Taliban, and at the end they kill Afghan people as they are getting killed since 40 years. Therefore, Taliban are the mother of every crisis in Afghanistan, and unfortunately we Afghans are living in the toughest situation of our history. You can hear some of the organizations, international community, UN, they are helping poor Afghans with millions of dollars. But this is not the way. When you are destroying a system, when you are demolishing a government that was functioning for 20 years and it was dealing with all the crises, including the Taliban. When you are demolishing it, then you cannot take your part, you cannot do your responsibility only for injecting a few millions of dollars for more than 30 million people. You can see millions of Afghans are now trying to leave the Afghanistan. You can see Afghans administrative system is totally collapsed. Taliban closed the doors of every administrative office. They don't have people to run the offices. You can see their nominees, you can see their appointments, and you can see the people who they think that will work for a government. You also heard what Imran Khan said. Shamelessly, he said, we are ready to send our expertise to Afghanistan to help the administrative affairs with the Taliban. If you go back and see the international scales and on international level, Afghanistan human power is much better than the Pakistan human power. They say we will send a branch of Allama Iqbal University to Afghanistan to educate the Afghan boys and girls. I can remember them that we have more than 350 governmental and private universities. Please allow them to be open. Please allow girls and boys to go to the universities. We don't need the Pakistani universities in our country. I can guarantee that we have the capability in Afghanistan that can send hundreds of lecturers and professors to teach Pakistanis in their own universities. So Taliban are making Afghan professionals, are making Afghan elites, are making Afghans who have higher education and high experience in different aspects of the administrative, higher education in other parts of the life. They are making them to go out for one reason, to make Afghanistan prepared to accept the Pakistani intelligent system, to accept the Pakistani human power into accept openly the Pakistani invasion that we have already started fight against it in social media, in Twitter, in other platforms. So we Afghans need we are in the most difficult situation. We need every kind of support. The best support for Afghans is that to pressurize the Taliban to obey the political settlement, to accept the Loya Jirga and form a government for a specific time like 6 months or 1.5 years to organize a commission for constitution reform of the constitution if they want it. Otherwise we have a good constitution, Islamic, Afghan, it's based on Afghanistan, Islamic and international standards. And also they should announce that when the Afghan people can go to the voting, at the result of voting, whoever comes to power, whoever gain the power, he can be the leader of Afghanistan. He can be Hebatullah, he can be Mullah Hassan, he can be Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, he can be Abdullah, or he can be Hamid Karzai or Ashraf Ghani. I can assure you, if they obey a political settlement, if they allow us to go to the elections, I can assure you that President Ghani, President Hamid Karzai, or any other one who is opposing the Taliban, they will win the election and there will be no place for the Taliban. I can tell you one thing, Taliban are alive in two positions. Either they should be leading the country by force, by killing people, and by enforcing their laws and regulations, and by depriving people from their civil rights, or they will be fighting by gun. Third way, which is the political way, for them is closed not by Afghan people but by them, because they know if they come through the political system, no one will accept them. The only acceptance factor for the Taliban is the gun, is the oppression, and is the power, and is the intimidation. Third way, which is the political settlement, which is the vote of the people, they have no way, and no one in Afghanistan is accepting them. And at the end, I would like to ask Afghan people to stand firmly against what Taliban started, to stand against what Pakistan is doing in Afghanistan, and to stand against what Iran and Russia and China is doing in Afghanistan. I am sure situation will be changed soon or later on, but the implication of post-Taliban will not be less than the implication of post-Republic that we have today in Afghanistan.
So much for laying down such a diverse talk and helping us understand us, and creating us a context for us to understand what is ongoing in Pakistan. And it's indeed a big crisis for all of us. The world is witnessing the crisis, and I'm sure you all are living it. I would like to extend my welcome to Major Abhinav Amit Bansal, sir. I welcome you to on the platform. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to ask a question from Kabir Hakmal, sir. If he wants to take this right now, or I mean, if he wants to take it, I have got this question. So, if you could deliberate on the role of Pakistan in stipulating the Afghan crisis, as you even suggested in your talk, so if you could deliberate more on that. Thank you.
Pakistan is the main factor behind the Taliban. They played very well and they utilized the Taliban very well. If you remember in 2001, when President Josh announced the war against the terrorism with billions of dollars, Pakistan went to the coalition and they accepted the decision made by international community in the America. Instead of helping Taliban as they claim as a Muslim partner, they brought a lot of Taliban into the American jails and got billions of dollars. You can read the Pervez Musharraf's book on the maybe I'm wrong in the name on the front on the fire line or something. It's the name I read this book. You can read the books by Ahmad Rashid. You can read the books written by other Pakistani writers. They clearly say that how much they helped America in the war against Taliban and against Al Qaeda. But when they saw the Taliban are the backbone of the Islamist extremists in Kashmir and the region across the so-called Duran line, they kept them aside. They kept them against the Afghan government and they wanted to utilize them whenever they needed. Unfortunately, until 2008, we couldn't utilize the opportunity to have a harmony in Afghanistan and to bring all the opposite power to the political settlement. We couldn't do that. Unfortunately, our international community, our international allies didn't help us to do this or didn't make the system on that day, which was a child system in Afghanistan, was just made up and was growing. In our internal political issues were the Northern Alliance, leading by a group of Jamiat Islami or the people who had a high hand in President Karzai's system. They didn't allow the people who were sinking into the Pakistani hands, like Taliban or Hizb Islami or other groups. Pakistan kept them and they utilized them back when Afghanistan was standing on its own feet. When they got billions of dollars from America, and when the fight against terrorism was ending, and when America said that we won't stay in Afghanistan in the 2014 will be the beginning point for the withdrawal of international forces from Afghanistan, they realized that Afghan government cannot have the situation that we want it. They started fighting us politically. They were asking for Duran line. You can clearly watch the videos that is published by President Hamid Karzai. You can write a lot. You can read a lot of documents published by Afghan government, by our National Security Council, our National Security Advisor, Mr. Moheb, President Ashraf Ghani, and President Karzai. They were asking the Afghanistan to be totally under the control. Afghan foreign policy should be totally under the control of the Pakistan, and also we shouldn't discuss the Duran line issue. We shouldn't allow the Pashtuns movements like Pashtuns in both sides of the Duran line, and we shouldn't support all the civil activities that are underway in Pakistan. They wanted in Afghanistan like they had during the Mujahideen regime for 4 years, and they had during the Taliban regime like 5 or 6 years. Afghanistan didn't want that. And President Ghani's regime, we started a move towards in absolute sovereignty. We managed Afghan water. We were going to build dams and we were going to support all the civil activities which were taking place that side of Duran line. One of them was PTM. Afghanistan was totally against the support of terrorism by the Pakistan, but Afghanistan was firmly standing behind those movements. They were getting moral support, not political support, and not financial support or any other support. Afghans were giving moral support to all the civilian activities and struggles against the Pakistani terrorist regime. And also, we started discussions regarding the border issues. Afghanistan, let me tell you clearly, maybe some other guests from India will also accept that. We don't have a formal border with the Pakistan. We had a deal with British Empire, with the Eastern Company located in India. We had it with the region which was named India. We don't have any deal regarding the Durand with a country of 77 or 70 years named Pakistan. So Pakistan, clearly, I remember the meetings that Pakistani intelligence chief and Pakistani chief of army staff was participating. They were clearly claiming a lot of things that no Afghan is ready to give it to them. At the end, what happened? Afghan government was uh, thinking that international community will not leave us alone and they will stay with us at least until 2022 or 24. They were not ready to fight alone and to be ready to work alone without the support of international community. In that side, Pakistan started lobbying for the Taliban in international communities level. They firstly brought Zalmay Khalilzad to Pakistan, brought Amir Khan Muttaqi, current so-called foreign minister of the Taliban, and some other Taliban leaders, and guaranteed that if America is leaving and if America is agree with the Pakistan that the Afghan issues must be dealt through Pakistan in ISI, we are ready to finish the fight in Afghanistan and make a settlement. They also started negotiations with Afghans who were opposite of the President Ghani's regime. I don't want to name them, but there are very big and famous names who tried to destroy the republic and to throw the President Ashraf Ghani out from the presidential palace. Pakistan promised them that Taliban will come to a negotiation to build up a national unity government. All the parties will be involved and all the political figures will be involved except President Ashraf Ghani and his team. Pakistan played a very gentle game. They convinced the America to bring back Taliban to the power, and they convinced the Afghan politicians that the Taliban are almost changed and they can accept you and they can give you a share in the government. At the end, what they did, they brought Taliban into the power by getting help from America and other agents from international community and regional powers, and they kept some of the Afghan politics inside the Kabul without having any role in the Taliban regime. And now you know the Afghanistan is totally under the control of the Pakistan. If you go and see the Taliban cabinet members, every one of them are staying in Pakistan. Their families are in Pakistan. They stay 1 week in Kabul or somewhere, getting some money in luxury cars with themselves, going back to Pakistan and staying there. They meet Pakistani intelligence agencies and intelligence figures more than they meet the ordinary Afghans inside the country. Therefore, they are not coming together to Afghanistan with the Afghan people. They will not have a joint living system with the Afghan people in Afghanistan. Will never accept them because Afghans do accept everything, but they do not accept Pakistani rule. You remember 3 days back, Pakistani NSA was coming to Kabul in the toughest situation of the Taliban regime. Our young generation stand bravely and they planned a protest against the Kabul International Airport. They didn't allow the Pakistani spy to come inside Afghanistan to humiliate us more than that and have some more plans to destroy the Afghanistan and rule Afghanistan. This is one sign of the Afghan aggression against the Pakistan in opposition against the Pakistan, and this will be getting support day by day. We ask our regional and international partners who stood with us during last 20 years to come up and to help us back to bring democracy in Afghanistan. We are not struggling for people, for a person or two, for a group or two. We are struggling for a system which is accepted in all the world, a system that is accepted in America, in India, in England, in all the countries. Why you are going to accept a system for yourself and you are rejecting it for the Afghans who stood with you, who lost hundreds of thousands of people in the fight against the terrorism? This war against the terrorism was not only Afghanistan's war. Our soldiers in Helmand, in Kunar, in Badakhshan, in all the provinces of Afghanistan were fighting for the world's security. They were not fighting for the Afghan security. They were getting killed only because they were fighting for India, for America, and for all the humanity. They were praying as the Taliban, as like the Taliban are praying. They were Muslim like the Taliban are Muslim. They were recitating Quran Yazimushan as the Taliban are doing this. They had no other problem with the Taliban. The one problem that we lost hundreds of thousands of people was defending the humanity and standing for the international security. We sacrificed our lives for 20 years defending the human rights in international community and the international security, in the world security. Unfortunately, world thrown us to the mouth of the wolves, and now we are just sacrificing, and no one is thinking about the future of Afghanistan and about the current situation in Afghanistan. They only see us from a very narrow, from a very bad, and from a very dirty lens of Pakistan, which is killing for not for Afghanistan. You will see the root of many international crises coming back from Afghanistan, getting support from Taliban. Right now, if you can uh, search all the terrorist activities in the world level, the root cause reaches back to the Pakistan. While we had in Afghanistan in a system against terrorism in Afghanistan, it was the situation in the world that we have all the roots of the terrorism activities in Pakistan. So when they have a huge geography named Afghanistan with a cabinet all under the sanctions of the UN's Security Council, what do you think? What will be the future of the region, the future of the world under the management of the terrorist system, under the management of the Pakistan, in the Pakistan, where the Taliban leaders and other terrorists are working freely, and Ali Wazir and other civilian activists are in jail, and they are killing them, they are kidnapping them, they are putting them in the jail. I don't know what the logic is with the international community and how they are looking at, while all the Senate, all the MPs, all the media of Western world and all of the world say that Pakistan is supporting Taliban. Not only the Taliban, Pakistan supporting all the terrorist group in the world who are killing the humans, who are destroying the countries, and who are plotting against the stable system. You can see the situation in Kashmir, you can see the situation in some parts of the Iran, you can see the situation in Afghanistan, and even you can see the situation in America and other countries, starting from the attacks of 9/11. The people went from Pakistan, and all other attacks happened or happening in the world.
Thank you, Kabir Hakmal sir. Sure, your voices, your Afghan voice is definitely heard. Moving over, we'll get back to you, sir, in the question answers round. Thanks again. Moving ahead, we have our next speaker. We have Major Amit Bansal, sir. He's a veteran from armed forces with a rich experience of serving in counter-terrorism environment in both Jammu and Kashmir, as well as Northeast India within elite forces of Indian Army. Post this, he has been a keen writer and have authored over 1,500 articles and papers in various national and international publications. He's an associate fellow with MPIDSA and presently working on leadership position with one of the largest media houses of India. I extend my warm welcome to you, sir. I'm sure we can hear some of the Indian voices, as we have already heard an aspect of Afghan voices from Kabir Hakmal, moving over to the Indian side of the understanding of the Taliban violence in Afghanistan. Over to you, sir. Thank you again.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you for hosting me. And before we move on to the session, I would like to emphasize on one aspect. So when I visualize one of the biggest mistakes of history. So one thing I must say should be recorded in the history, and that is the Doha Agreement between America and Taliban, where without taking the common people of Afghanistan, without taking the actual people of Afghanistan into confidence, America has gone ahead, did an agreement with Taliban, which made the way of Taliban uh, more smooth into Afghanistan. So as we are discussing the regional and global implications of Taliban in Afghanistan, we must say who brought in Taliban now? If we see the entire history, initially, say about 40 years, 50 years back, Afghanistan was one of the most prosperous countries. It was more prosperous than Pakistan per se. Soviets came, then to pull out Soviets from Afghanistan, Afghan people invited, or maybe the people who moved in from outside, is the CIA-led coalition, CIA and ISI, the dirty coalition of America and Pakistan. They moved in with the Mujahideens. The tribals who were brave tribals who were farmers were given the weapons, recruited as Mujahideens. When Soviets left, these Mujahideens became a threat for the nation. So they brought in Taliban. When Taliban became a threat, they brought in the coalition forces against the war against terrorism, America against moving. Now, to pull out that force, they again brought in Taliban. So every time for last 40 years, external forces have played a vital role in destabilizing the life of Afghanistan. So what is going to be the implication? First of all, what we see, the biggest threat as of now in front of Afghanistan is emerging as a humanitarian crisis, the food crisis, medicines, foods, essential supplies. I've been observing Afghanistan for over 20 years, and first time in the history I've seen that winter stocking could not take place in most of the regions. What we hear or what we see in the news is the information from the metros, information from the big cities, Kabul, Kandahar, and all. We are not able to get the information from the hinterland of Afghanistan, where situation is very, very severe. Let me explain you with a story. I was going through a news item from one of the interior village of Afghanistan, where two minor girls, died in their house out of hunger. Reason was, since Taliban has put on sanctions that no women can move out of the home without a male person escorting them. They could not move out. Their parents were killed in the civil war. So these two girls could not move out. They stayed inside the house. There was no water, there was no food, and they starved to death. So this is the actual situation in Afghanistan's hinterland. And problem is that the biggest threat to this is that though the world wants, the global powers wants to support it, but Pakistan does not want. Another example is that 70 lakh ton of wheat, which was donated by India, is still lying at the borders, and it could not make its way to Afghanistan till date for last 3 months. 3 months. Had it reached 3 months back, at least some people could have been fed. Whatever India is able to send through air mode, that also Pakistan has refused the air route. So it has to encircle the entire Arabian Sea, and via Iran it has to go to Afghanistan. Whatever India is sending through air is reaching Afghanistan. Land route, nothing is going. So Pakistan is creating hurdles in humanitarian crisis. It wants to call its shots. The second biggest crisis after the humanitarian crisis is oppression of women, ex-Afghan soldiers, and minorities. Now, if we see the entire structure of Taliban, who all are there in that? So we see predominantly the people of Pashtun tribe into this. We have all Pashtuns in Taliban. There's hardly any representation of Hazaras. There's hardly any representation of Tajiks. So the Otherwise, these other tribes significantly contribute in the population of Afghanistan, but they are not getting any representation in the so-called government of Afghanistan, which is so-called Taliban, which is affecting it. They have closed the education institutes, they have closed all the rights for women. Another aspect, they are carrying out the targeted killings of anybody who could be a potential threat to them, whether it is ex-soldiers of Afghan National Force, or it is ex-political leaders, or it is social leaders, or it is women who are raising their voices. They are killed in cold blood, and there is no answerability. Nobody can ask them any kind of answers. Also, they are denying the supplies of people of other areas. I was hearing a report about the Hazara dominated areas. No supplies have been sent to them. All supplies have been sent to the Pashtun dominated areas, which is a major threat. Another issue, a very large scale movement is going on in Afghanistan where they are looting and burning the houses of other tribes, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras. So this again, so ultimately the minorities are feeling helpless, the women are feeling helpless, and ex-Afghan soldiers who were supposed to be fighting, who were the government employees, they are also feeling helpless. And what is it resulting into? These Afghan soldiers will have no way other than to join any kind of opposition force. So we have a threat of another civil war in Afghanistan. The country which is where there is continuous bloodshed on the mountains of Hindu Kush for the last 40 years is still sitting on a time bomb. The third aspect, which is going to be an implication, regional implication rather, is going to be the drug syndicate. Now, Taliban has no money. Taliban wants to expand its operations. They want to give their salary to their Taliban soldiers. So what it is doing now, it is getting involved into the opium trade. Now, who is helping Taliban in this opium trade? I would recollect a report of UN Peace Council where they have categorically mentioned that the entire drug syndicate of Taliban and the entire drug syndicate of Afghanistan is facilitated and run by inter-services intelligence of Pakistan. They facilitate this drugs to move out of Afghanistan through Pakistan, and in turn they make their own money. So, nevertheless, to know if Taliban is getting involved with the drug trade, who's getting benefited ultimately? We are able to visualize at our level that in next few years, Afghanistan, if it is not stopped, Afghanistan may emerge as a biggest drug hub of the world, out surpassing Latin America, Colombia, and Mexico. Because the way the Taliban is now facilitating the opium cultivation, they have come out with a model: pay some money, pay some tax, and farmers can grow opium now. Another threat which we are talking about is a threat or implication, you can say. There is a constant fear in Afghanistan. Earlier, there were a lot of warlords who were calling shots. Now, because since Taliban has moved in, these warlords have been pushed out of Afghanistan. Some of them are sitting in Tajikistan, some of them are sitting in Afghanistan, Iran, some of them are in Uzbekistan. They have their own militia, they have their own army. So they are also ready to strike back. So if you see the areas, border town, Herat, Mazar-e-Sharif, or maybe other areas, there is a constant fear among the people for another civil war between these forces, Taliban versus these warlords. What it is having an implication is that influence of Pakistan is increasing day by day. Pakistan is controlling all the supplies moving into Afghanistan. So it wants to ensure that whatever it says, Taliban government should follow verbatim. Otherwise, we will not allow the supplies to move it. The live example is that 70 lakh ton of wheat, which is lying still yet to be shifted to Afghanistan. So it is calling shots by stopping the supplies through land route. It is calling shots by controlling elements within Taliban. It is calling shots by creating a rift between the local tribals and Taliban. Now, since Taliban government, if somebody asked me a few days before that what does Taliban wants? So my single word answer would be what Taliban wants now is legitimacy. the single most important thing you want is legitimacy. And they are fighting for it, and they can do anything for it. They want to have a legitimate government so that all their actions, whether it is oppressing women, human rights violation, humanitarian crisis, or killing, anything can be justified. It is the only government in the world which is having its own suicide squad as part of its defense ministry. No government in the world has got suicide squad as part of their army. And they proudly presented it during the last presentation. So with this all discussion which I did till now, what is going to be the global implications? Global implications, the situation rising of Afghanistan, how it can affect the overall scenario in the world. It has got a major aspect. In last 1 decade or so, America has established a lot of training centers for Afghan army within Afghanistan. There are about 11 or 12 training centers which have been established in Afghanistan, where American machinery has been established. They've got the training center, they've got the simulators, they've got all sort of systems to train a soldier. And now Taliban has got access to all these machinery. In past, global terrorists have been trained in Taliban camps. Some of the terrorists who have been UN designated terrorists have also been trained in Taliban camps. Since Taliban does not have money, we have a very, very high possibility that Taliban may use these training centers to use as a nursery for terrorists, which he can send all over the world, and which is the biggest threat. Earlier, they were trained in the makeshift training centers. Now they will be trained properly like an army, like a proper commando. And the kind of havoc this kind of terrorists can wreak all over the world, whether it is Kashmir or whether it is Middle East, whether it is Syria, it is beyond my imagination. Another threat is Taliban has got access to a large cache of weapon and equipment. They've got American tanks, they've got American armored personnel carriers, they've got American night vision devices, arms, ammunition. There's plethora of items with them. They've already started selling it to Pakistan for fuel. Pakistan already there is a thing going on, and they are giving it to Pakistan, and the Pakistan is giving them fuel. That is started 3-4 months back only, but now they can sell it to the terror groups all over the world to make money, which is going to be another threat to us. And when we talk about the situation, and when we talk about the solution of it, in my view, there has not been there's no military solution to it. People of Afghanistan are the solution. They have to stay put within the Afghanistan. What happens? Another group comes into Afghanistan, they move out of Afghanistan. Another Taliban. What happened when Taliban 1.0 moved in? A large number of intellectuals moved out of Afghanistan, and ultimately the local population was the sufferer. When warlords came in, some of them stayed put, some of them moved out. When coalition forces moved in 2004, they established a government in Afghanistan. People who went out, they moved in back, but kept on settling. Again, when this Taliban rule happened, there was a complete trend. Everybody from Afghanistan wanted to move out. People will have to stay put. They have to fight Taliban. I see sometimes women protesting on the streets of Kabul. They have to protest more. They have to go to Afghanistan. Taliban is what? How much Taliban are there? Hardly 55,000 as of now. They have to be fought it out. The locals of Afghanistan will have to work out a solution. They have to say no to Pakistan. Why are they saying okay, Pakistan, come and meddle into our affairs? They have to say no to Pakistan. They have to plan their own way. They have to plan their own culture. They have to decide at what route do they want to take Afghanistan. In the past, Afghanistan has been jewel of Central Asia. It was the most important part of the Silk Route, from where the Silk Route was diverting into Iran, all into Europe or into Central Asia. But when we see the history, initially Soviets, then warlords, then Taliban 1.0, then again Afghanistan government which was corrupt, then again Taliban 2.0. So every time an external force is coming up and spoiling the entire country. So not taking much of the time, I would like to conclude my remarks by saying that the solution to Afghan problem lies within the hands of Afghan people. People can support, people can give them any kind of support, but they have to be ready to find out a solution rather than escaping from the problem. There have been enough blood on the Hindu Kush. 40 years, there have been constantly blood has been flowing. And if we see, some older people will agree with me, the situation where Afghanistan was 40 years back and today where it is. Once the Afghan people decide they want peace, a lot of humanitarian organizations will automatically move in. They'll start creating infrastructure, they'll start creating things into Afghanistan. But Afghan people will have to first take a call and they have to take the first step. Thank you, Shreya, for this. Thanks for giving me an opportunity for this. Anybody has got any question, I can answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Amit Bansal sir. Joined us at a very short, at a short call, and I'm really glad that we could hear you speak on such a diverse topic. And that was really crisp, I must say that. Thanks a lot. So we do have some questions coming in. Some changes have been there in the panel. So I would request even Kabir Hakmal sir to even open his camera and to start with the question and answers. First question is by Simran for Kabir Hakmal, sir, and it goes like, what campaigns does the pro-democracy Afghans are running? Would you like to? Would you like me to tell you the questions and you can note it down and then go about it, or you want me to take one by one? I mean, what is
Yeah,
your mode of?
we'll go one
All
by
right.
one.
So
In the beginning, yeah, in the beginning, I have some points regarding the some point of views of Major Saab. If you allow me to say something about it, then I'll go to the questions.
yes, sure, please. I mean,
Yeah, the most I cannot say the wrong, mistakenly interpreted interpretation from the Taliban is that they are Pashtuns and they are working for the Pashtuns. The person who knows at least ABC of the Afghan politics in Afghan war against the Taliban in last 20 years will know that the biggest distraction of the Taliban movement is where the Pashtun population is living. It's totally wrong that all the Taliban are Pashtuns. No Pashtun Talib you can find in Pamir, in Darwaz, in Faizabad, in Khwaja Bahauddin, in Panjshir, in Bamiyan, in other provinces in north or northeast of Afghanistan. So first, Taliban is not a Pashtun movement. Yes, they are mostly Pashtuns which are fighting only for their ideology, not for Pashtuns. They deprived Pashtuns for 20 years. If you go back and see 95% bombs are thrown on the houses of Pashtuns people in the fight against Taliban. 95% explosions, suicide attacks, targeted killings of the Taliban happened in Pashtun areas. More than 5 or 6,000 tribal elders we lost only in Kandahar, which were 100% Pashtuns. More than 95% prisoners in Taliban prisons now are the Pashtuns. The most population of political Afghans who are deprived in getting threats and warnings from the Taliban are Pashtuns. The highest voice against the Taliban now is the Pashtun voice. One of them is me. I am a Pashtun and I am against the Taliban in their theory. We lived with Hazaras, with Uzbeks, with Tajiks, and other Afghans. Fortunately, they suffered less in last 20 years. Unfortunately, we Pashtun suffered more from the Taliban. And what will be happening after the Taliban against this Pashtun population will be suffering because of the majority of Taliban are Pashtun and they are ruling every action of them which they are taking against any opposite group is considering as the Pashtun action, but no one is thinking of the Pashtun population who is living under the Taliban suppression since 20 years. The population of Pashtuns who are getting killed in both sides of Durand line, so-called Durand line. You see and count the heads we lost during last 20 years in Taliban attacks. You see and count the leaders we lost against the Taliban, starting from the brother of Hamid Karzai, coming back to the General Razik, coming back to the General Zarawar Zahid, coming back to my brother. My brother was a Pashtun, got killed by the Taliban. Please, anyone who is commenting about Afghanistan in the Taliban, please, I request you humbly, do not put any Pashtun interpretation to the Taliban. Yes, we have some circles, we have some figures, and we have some movements. They are trying to gain the international support or national support or regional support in the war against the Taliban, and they are not only against the Taliban, they are mainly against the Pashtuns and they are mainly against the Afghan unity. I told you before, I didn't take the names. Those who are now saying that the Taliban are oppressing us because Taliban are Pashtuns and we are Hazaras or Uzbek or Tajiks, they first went and sit with the Taliban. They were thinking the Taliban will give them a part in their government. You go and see what's the history behind the deal of warlords in Afghanistan in the deal of Taliban with the Taliban in Afghanistan. You know, during the fight against Taliban, Afghan government was not facing only the Taliban as a terrorist group. Afghan government was facing many other groups as the criminal groups with which were closely allied with the Taliban. In those groups are well men, they destroyed the country, they gained billions of dollars, they had a good part of the government in their hands. Back they went to destroy the government, to with take Mr. Ghani from the ark. They sit with the Taliban. They promised Pakistan that they will destroy the Afghan government until they are receiving any guarantee from the Pakistan that Taliban will give them a part. So now, if you see few people are chanting against the Taliban coming into the street, it's a civilian struggle. But don't think they are only Hazaras, they are only Tajiks, they are only Uzbeks. The first people who came out against the Taliban, it was Pashtun population in the local uprising. We lost the 18% of young generation of under district in Ghazni province of Afghanistan. All of them were Pashtun and they were fighting against the Taliban. We lost thousands of young generation of Achekzais in Kandahar fighting against the Taliban. Now the Taliban prisons are full of these people. We lost hundreds of people in host in KPF forces fighting against Taliban. Now they are activated, they are actively against the Taliban in political ways, and they are getting suffered by the Taliban. Please do not put any regional, any ethnicity issues in the Taliban. I think I can answer your question that you now are going to raise it. Yes, I accept majority of the Taliban leadership is Pashtun. But hear from me, Taliban are not fighting for Pashtunism in Afghanistan. Yes, majority of the people who are in executive positions in the Taliban are Pashtuns in from the south and east of Afghanistan. But go and ask them about Pashtunism and the values that Pashtunism has. They don't fight for that. In Uzbek Talib, who has the NOC from the Pakistan, is more better for the Taliban than a Pashtun. I'm a Pashtun. I'm from the area where the Taliban were ruling since many years, but I am opposing the Taliban. There are hundreds, there are thousands of Uzbeks, Tajiks, Hazaras who are supporting Taliban now. One of them is one of former MPs of Hazara population who got one of his supporters the deputy minister position in economic ministry of Afghanistan. You can see other people from Hazara, from Tajik, who are joined Taliban, and they have a big hand. One of them is chief of army staff of the Taliban, who is originally from Badakhshan. And now the army chief of Afghanistan is from Badakhshan. The executive power of Taliban's army is from Badakhshan and from the north of Afghanistan. Second thing that I wanted to mention in his thoughts, he said the mistake was the Doha agreement between the Taliban and America. I can clearly say that because during that agreement, I was working in the Office of National Security Council. This was not a deal between Taliban and America. This was a deal between ISI and CIA. This deal happened only to pave the way for a withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan, which was promised by the ex-president of America, Donald Trump. It was not planned to bring stability to Afghanistan. It was only planned for that no American soldier will be killed during the withdrawal campaign from Afghanistan. It was a deal in the favor of Taliban group, in the favor of Pakistan. It was not in the favor of Afghan population. So don't call it Doha agreement between the Taliban in America. Call it Doha agreement between the Pakistan and Taliban, because they once they had already been agreed upon this agreement first in Rawalpindi in Islamabad. Then they made a scenario. They had some heroes like Mullah Brother, Muttaqi or others. They formed a group or commission. They were dealing with America, and then at the end they had a so-called joint press release or agreement. That agreement is also not clear yet. It has two parts. One part is announced in the media, another part is not announced. Another part is that you are seeing it now. The Taliban are attacking the Wahhabis, Salafis in the Afghan Muslim clerics who are like they think that they are against the favor of Pakistan or America or other countries who are supporting Taliban in the region, in the area. And the third thing that I noticed was he said Pakistan is deepening the human crisis in Afghanistan. Look, Pakistan has never been ready to support the Afghan public. They are ready to support the Taliban as a proxy group of their interests in Afghanistan. They putting Afghan nation in the trouble because Afghan nation hate them, and they should be tortured because of that hate that they have against the Pakistan. Pakistan announced that all the Afghans will be getting the visas after the fall of Republic. When they saw that millions of Afghans are applying for visas and they have the cases that they can go to Islamabad, then they can fly to America or Canada or European countries. Since the month they stopped issuing the visas, even to the Afghan patients who are going to the medical purposes to the Pakistan. On every aspect they are supporting Taliban. One of support is that they are closing the doors against Afghans to show to the world that still we have millions of Afghans inside the country and they are supporting the Taliban regime. They will pressurize the Afghan people until they accept what Pakistan wants, until they accept what Taliban wants, and until they accept what is the Pakistan purposes in Afghanistan, which is firstly dual line, and secondly the sovereignty of Afghanistan, and thirdly the water running freely to the Pakistan without having any count, without having any management, or without having any utilization in Afghan soils for the benefit of Afghan people.
Mr. Kabir, I would like to clarify a few facts because when I speak with the data, with all the data done. So when I mentioned the Pashtun domination of Pakistan, as per the data I have, is that out of the entire cadre strength of Taliban, almost 89.2% is Pashtun. This data I have. Secondly, when I mentioned about Doha deal, so or Doha, whatever happened in Doha, so it was a mistake primarily because it was a deal about Afghanistan and people of Afghanistan were not taken into consideration.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you have
It was a mistake. I
you
can't
have
call it a deal.
data,
My words may be
sir?
wrong, but it was not a
Sir,
deal. But it was a arrangement by which US could move out of Afghanistan easily, but without consultation of people of Afghanistan. So it paved the way of. It gave a kind of legitimacy of Taliban to move into Afghanistan. So that's what is was my perception of saying. The thing was to counter you, but yes, of course, the biggest role the today the situation in which Afghanistan is, it is purely and purely because of Pakistan. Last 40 years, they have been instrumental in creating disturbances inside Afghanistan, and last 40 years they have ruined the entire civilization of Afghanistan. That's what I had to say. So we can go for the questions now.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Kabir Hakmal sir. The democratic views are always welcomed. And thank you for both of the speakers for a great session. So I would vouch for Kabir Hakmal sir to lead the session with answering questions. So the first question is by Simran, and she asks, what campaigns does the pro-democracy Afghans are running? If you would want to answer to that.
in the beginning, let's do not rely on the numbers. Uh, there in India, you may see a destructive group formed from a specific tribal people or a language. You cannot tell that it's a movement relating to that specific tribe or language until they have a tribal or linguistic ideology or idea. If the Taliban are 100% Pashtuns, it doesn't make difference for me as a Pashtun until they do not have any Pashtunist ideology or until they are not giving any privilege to the Pashtuns. Then I will stand against them as anti-Pashtun because they are depriving others from coming to power, from access to the livelihood facilities and other things. So they are, as they are depriving other ethnic groups from coming to power, they are depriving our Pashtuns also. If they are Pashtun, they are not there as being a Pashtuns. They are there because they are Pashtun Taliban. When you are a Pashtun Talib, you are a good person. When you are a Tajik Talib, you are a good person. When you are an Uzbek Talib, you are a good person. When you are not a Talib, whoever you are not acceptable for that. So if you go back to the jihadi, don't look at the numbers. Numbers do not talk. If you go to back to the jihad period of Afghanistan against the Soviet Unions, the jihad was not only Pashtun jihad. Do you accept that for me with me? It was jihad against the Russian Soviet Unions by all the Afghans. But if you go to the 7 groups or 7 parties of Afghan Mujahideen, the big number of these groups were leading by the Pashtuns. Gulbuddin Hekmatyar was a Pashtun, leading the biggest party. Yunus Khalis was a Pashtun, leading one of the powerful parties. Maulavi Muhammad Nabi Muhammadi was a Pashtun, leading one of the biggest parties, which then turned the Taliban. Ustad Abdurrab Rasul Sayaf was a Pashtun who was leading one of the important conservative parties in Afghan Jihad. Hazrat Sibghatullah Mujaddidi, he doesn't name himself Pashtun, but all the group in party was made of the Pashtuns because he is a religious cleric and he has supporters in the Pashtun population. And Pir Said Ahmad Gailani, the 6th one. In 7 jihadi parties, 6 of them were Pashtun parties. One of them, which was Jamiat, was leading by Burhanuddin Rabbani, and his executive power in military branch was Ahmad Shah Massoud. So we cannot say the jihad of Afghanistan was totally a Pashtun jihad. It was jihad by everyone against the Soviet Unions. Now Taliban are from Afghanistan getting support by the Pakistan with a specific proxy idea. We cannot name them Taliban Pashtuns because they are speaking Pashtun. We name them Taliban because they have Taliban ideology. The Taliban ideology is against everyone, against Pashtun, against Tajik, against Hazara, against Uzbek. What was mentioned in the
Kabir sir,
question?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm interrupting you. So we have one of the speakers who has joined. Nilofer Ayubi is here. So I'm so sorry. We'll get back to you, Kabir sir. I would like to take her on board. Nilofer Ayubi, I extend my very warm welcome to you. She is a renowned journalist, entrepreneur, and social activist and CEO to Asia Times, Afghanistan. She was also the TEDx Warsaw Women Speaker in 2021. Nilofer ma'am, can you please switch on your camera and join us? I'm afraid Nilofer. Nilofer ma'am, I can see you. Can you unmute yourself and as well as turn on your camera so that we can hear from you as well?
Hello everyone. I'm so sorry that I'm on my way. I had to go somewhere urgent. I will come directly to the point. However, I would like to ask once again that what were you discussing about because the moment I entered, Mr. Hakmal was talking about Pashtun Taliban's nationality. Was this discussion about that?
No, ma'am. He was just deliberating on a point made by another speaker. So that was he was trying to explain that. So
Okay.
we are still on the very topic, and we would like to hear from you if you could very briefly touch on the today's webinar topic, that is regional and global implications of the Taliban's violence in Afghanistan. And I would really like if you could highlight the women's issue since you have been a ardent speaker about it in your talks. So I would like you to please highlight some of those. That would be great. That would be a great learning for all of us from your end. Over to you, Nilofer ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would, to be honest, I would only prefer to talk about women's situation in Afghanistan in the regional community or international community turning a blind eye towards women of Afghanistan. Because currently, since August 15, we can see that only women have stood against Taliban atrocities against Taliban, and they have been protesting, even though they know the threats, the serious threats to their lives and to what can happen to them. And even we have witnessed multiple incidents happening to these women, like girls from Mazar who protested and were taken to custody, tortured, gang raped, and these are merely the tip of the iceberg that we are talking here about. Since I'm in contact with each one of these girls and the families, however, the families doesn't want to come forward because of the society and because most of them are warned and expressed by Taliban that they shouldn't talk about this situation in media. If they do, they will lose more family members. Um, let's talk about the recent event which took place just about yesterday when Taliban attacked started raiding women protesters' homes, and we saw one of the women sharing the video of the moment when she was attacked and taken. Until now, her fate is unknown. We have been seeing a lot of different information coming out that she's freed, she's fine, but it's not true because we haven't been able to contact her. And she's not alone. She's been taken with her sister and one of other the girls. Parwana Ibrahim Khail is one of the girls who were always active in the protest. She was an activist even before the fall of this collapse of Afghanistan. However, we were in contact. Me and Parwana were personally in contact, and I know that she was in threat. I know that they're looking for her. We would always discuss. The problem was that she didn't have a passport, so we could secure her, and also she didn't want to give up. She said she will not leave because this is her home, this is her country, and she's ready to sacrifice herself for the future of her sisters. And today we are witnessing that she's been taken with her brother-in-law, and her fate is also as unknown. And regarding Parwana, Parwana was lured out by one of her former colleagues while she was, who helped her to do her passport works. And then when she went out, she hasn't returned home since. Um, we had only one movement from our male community, which was anti-Pakistan protest. It was also the day before, and before this movement even started, they abducted the four men who were the organizers of this protest, and um, we witnessed that their accounts has been confiscated and compromised, and also. Uh, uh, I personally received messages from his Twitter account, and they were going through his Twitter account to find out who's he in contact with, just to find some reason to put the blame on him, because protesting is not a crime, and you cannot punish people for peacefully protesting. So Taliban's are not holding back at all. They don't even give any value to the international community. They, at the same time, they're asking for the recognition. We are now in a very bad situation. We are facing Taliban. At the same time, there are some people who are lobbying for the Taliban. We have some women lobbying for the Taliban. We have some ex-government officials who are now again who have joined the Taliban. And there's the international community negligence, that they just don't want to see or hear what's happening on the ground in Afghanistan. No matter how hard we try, we shout, we scream. You can see, you can compare the news on Afghan Twitter account and the international media, and you can see that how different the news are. So that's all I wanted to add, and if there was any question, I will be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nilofer Ayubi, ma'am. Indeed, the videos and social media does bring us some of the accounts which I'm sure are not even the half of what is happening in Pakistan related to women's issue and the minorities there. Such distressing videos or the news do make anyone who's living in any corner of the world really sad that we all are witnessing all this in a mid of a global pandemic, and especially the people, and nobody can even adhere to what you all are facing staying there. So that's very, thank you for bringing this up. Thanks a lot. Moving ahead, I would request all the participants, if they have any questions for Nilofer Ayubi, ma'am, so they can just post it in the chat box. Moving ahead, I would like to take up a question to Major Amit Bansal, sir. This question is by Arshe Bhardwaj, and the question goes like this. What can be the role of ex-soldiers in facing the rise of terrorism, and how can they encourage the people of Afghanistan? So, sir, if you could briefly, just give us some points on this so that we can move ahead, as there's a shortage of time already.
Yeah, I'll
Thank you.
quickly cover it. The situation of ex-soldiers in Afghanistan is very, very bad. They are living under a constant fear. And the situation is that anytime Taliban can come, take them out of the house and kill them. So far, as per my assumptions, more than 3,500 plus soldiers have been killed in cold blood by Taliban. So what is the option before them? Some of them have run away, some of them have joined the resistance forces in Panjshir Valley, and some of them are now, in order to save their lives, they are planning to join or have joined the opposition forces like ISIS, Islamic State and all. They have to live, though they don't match with the ideology of Islamic State, but they have no option other than to join these forces so that they can live. So there's no role, they're all hiding. 90% of the Afghan soldiers are in hiding. They are just trying to save themselves. They are just trying to save their lives from Taliban. So I don't see any role of these soldiers in bringing peace to Afghanistan.
Right, thank you, Major Amit Bansal. So I have a very quick question for Nilofer Ayubi, ma'am. I hope she is still here with us. This is by one of the participant. I hope, ma'am, you can hear me. I can't see you actually. I'm afraid that she has left, I suppose. Okay, so again, I'll shoot this question to Major Amit Bansal again. What cultural changes do you see after the takeover of Afghanistan by radical Islamist force? And again, a very crisp one from
as
you.
far as the cultural changes are there, I don't see any much of the cultural change because Afghanistan, despite of these radicals, Afghanistan follows its own culture. They follow Pashtun Wali, they follow their own tribal codes. So, as far as the culture is concerned, predominantly there will not be any macro change in the culture. However, yes, there are restrictions by Taliban, there are imposition of rules by Taliban. So, if Taliban goes away, these rules will again be changed. The Afghani culture, the Pashtun culture, Pashtun Wali culture, the culture of Hindu Kush remained the same for last hundreds of years, and it will remain the same. Culture is not going to change.
Also, again, a very requested question. I'm really, I'm bugging you, I think, with my questions, but I'm getting all these questions. So there's another question to Major Amit Bansal, sir. So the question goes like, the Taliban fighters fell into a scuffle with Pakistan army soldiers on the Durand line. What challenges do you see for Pakistan to deal with the border tensions? And this is the last question, so we'll move over to
So
Kabir.
this is typically the clashes between Taliban soldiers and Pakistani soldiers are local ones. So it does not reflect the mindset of Taliban or Pakistan, because leaders at the both level at the top, Pakistani army commanders and Taliban commanders, are connected to each other. Of course, there are local. What Taliban wants, that they want easy flow of people from this side of Durand line to other side of Durand line, and that is why, though they are not questioning what is the situation, but they are questioning the fencing of the Durand line. So the clashes have taken place at the Durand line, and these are bloodless clashes. By the way, they are not much of the clashes, fierce clashes have taken place, and at every point of time, the senior commanders have intervened and they have resolved the situation. So I don't see it is going to turn into a severe crisis, because ultimately Taliban and Pakistan ISI is almost same. Gangadhari Shaktiman hai.
You, Major Amit Bansal, thank you for joining us. In the end, I would like Kabir Hakmal to please, in a very crisp manner, as the time is running short, if he can just deliberate on to what extent does the Taliban has intruded the Afghan embassies in the abroad. If he could just very highlight or just shed a light on the same question, if he can, or if he wants to sir, if you want to add something to the talk, so the floor is
Yeah,
open to
no,
you.
I forgot the last question regarding the civil activities in Afghanistan. You are seeing the women are coming to the streets and they are demonstrating against the Taliban. You see the social media is much active in Taliban, are afraid of. They are arresting our friends and our young generations because they are posting against them in the social media, and they are fighting against them. I think it's a very beginning. We are in the fourth month of Taliban returns to power. I am sure people will be coming together. They are against the Taliban. What I afraid is a military campaign against the Taliban, which may start in the coming spring, God forbidden. And what I'm afraid is the expansion of the ISIS activities, because I get a lot of messages in my inbox. One of the previous special forces of Afghanistan texted me, and he said that a lot of their friends are asked by ISIS to work with them against a high price, even against a high salary, even higher than what they were getting paid by the Afghan government. I afraid that, and if Taliban are not able to make a political settlement in Afghanistan and do not go to a political process to guarantee the election and guarantee the loya jirga in Afghanistan, they will be facing another crisis inside Afghanistan. I always support, and we always support the civilian activities in civilian movements against the Taliban, as we were supporting civilian movements against Pakistani regime during our republic in Afghanistan, and we support this. We don't want fight again in Afghanistan, and we should make Taliban to accept a political settlement. Regarding the embassies, some of the countries like Iran, like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, not Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arabic Emirates in other countries. They have
Hello.
good relations with Pakistan and with Taliban, and they are allowing Taliban to intervene into the embassies. They have some rule in Pakistani embassy. They have rule in Iran, in Afghan embassy in Pakistan and Iran. China, the Afghan ambassador in China, Qaim, he was my former colleague in National Security Council office. He was complaining to me in our friendly chats that Chinese authorities are pressurizing the Afghan diplomats to take a side with the Taliban and to work on behalf of the Taliban. that no Afghan diplomat is ready to work on behalf of a terrorist regime with any country in international community. Therefore, he resigned from his position in as I know, all the diplomatic staff of Afghan embassy in Beijing resigned, and they are not on their works. So they are interfering the embassies, and they hope that they will be getting recognition from some of the countries. They already getting ready to take the seats and then activate their diplomatic missions. But what I can see as unfair act from some of the embassies in Afghanistan, they do not recognize the Taliban regime, but they are actively working in Afghanistan. Pakistan ambassador is working as a viceroy there, and after our friends in Afghans are raised their voices, he stopped publishing the pictures. Every day he was taking the pictures with Taliban ministers and all the authorities, and he is the main ruler of Afghanistan. Chinese ambassador, you can see his activities. He is all every day and all the time he is there with the Taliban. He is actively participating in supporting of the Taliban. Even Taliban says that China is supporting them to get recognition by the world. Russian embassy is actively participating the Talibani agenda in international platform, and also some other countries. Qatar is because was a hub for the Afghan peace process. They play a kind of a careful role. They're still trying. You may know that Qahtani, the special representative of Qatari king, met Dr. Abdullah in Muslimiyar and other politicians. They are still trying to make a settlement. But I don't think the Taliban in Pakistan will accept that. And Taliban are just wanting the power for themselves, and Pakistan is trying to deepen the Afghan crisis, and they don't want Afghans to come together and to make a settlement. This is all the scenario which is going on in diplomatic aspect of Afghanistan. And unfortunately, as we have all the crisis in Afghanistan, one of the crisis is the relationship of the Taliban with the world community. Taliban, the leadership of the Taliban under the restrictions of international community and the UN Security Council, and a lot of things are there to be done by the world after the Taliban regime get some recognition by the countries.
Thank you, Kabir Hakmal sir. Thanks a lot for joining with us. Last we have just received Atullah Omar, who has also joined us very recently. He's here. I hope you can hear me. So he is a multimedia journalist in Afghanistan, and he has been working on the last 14 years as a journalist and member of Afghan Journalism Society. I welcome you to the webinar. If you can hear me, you can unmute yourself, or if you would like to turn on your video and just be very brief and just give us some of your experiences or share something similar. I'm afraid Atullah Omar sir, can you hear me? Okay, so seeing all of your questions in the chat, I would ask the speakers to, we would be taking this forward as there's a problem of time and we have already exceeded that. So I would ask the people from the interns for this for the program to please note down the questions, and we would be sending these questions separately to the speakers if they allow us. I would like to thank Major for joining us, Nilofer ma'am, Kabir Hakmal. Thank you so much. It was indeed a lovely conversation, and I'm sure we all are taking something from here. Thanks a lot to Kabir Hakmal and Nilofer ma'am for putting the Afghan voices as this webinar demanded. Now I would, and also Major Abhinav, to highlight the Indian side or the Indian perception of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Thanks a lot. I would like to invite Shrishti, if she can hear me, to do the vote of thanks. Thanks a lot from my side. I'm signing off from the moderators. Thanks a lot.
A very good evening to all. I, Srishti Surana, on behalf of Red Lantern Analytica, take immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks. I would like to thank Sir Major Amit Bansal, Kabir Hakmal sir, and Nilofer Ayubi ma'am for to deliver such deep perspectives on the Afghan crisis. It was our honor to have such distinguished visitors on board with us. I would like to express my gratitude to the panel, volunteers, and audience to make this event a grand success. Hoping for more such interactions in the future. Thank you. Now, with the consent of our panelists, I would like to request everyone to kindly log out from the meet. Thank you once again.
Yeah, have a good time and stay well. Bye.
I would request the participants to please log out. Thank you so much for participating and being patient, a patient audience. All your questions would be sent to the speakers, and you can even get in touch with the organization through social media and their various channels. So I would request you to please follow them on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and also they come up with very good articles, so you can also look at that as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me over, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks a lot.